So Ntate Mavuso Msimang has decided to rescind his resignation from the ANC as a member. In this video, I've decided to read out the letter of resignation by Ntate Msimang and highlight some of the issues he raised in the letter, and look at how the resignation was received and dealt with by the Secretary General of the ANC, Fikile Mbalula. It is with profound sadness that I inform you of my decision to terminate my membership of the African National Congress. I have served the organization loyally and diligently for over 6 decades. For several years now, the ANC has been wrecked by endemic corruption with devastating consequences on the governance of the country and the lives of poor people, of whom there continues to be so many. Of course, the ANC did not invent corruption. We inherited a state that was morally bankrupt and that was built on the most profound forms of corruption. When we took over government in 1994, we had the moral high ground and the conviction that we will be able to root out the old boy networks that had benefited from and strangled the apartheid economy. Yet 3 decades later, the ANC's own track record of corruption is a cause of great shame. The corruption we once decried is now part of our movement's DNA. This has had dire consequences for the most vulnerable members of our society. Over 4 million people live in shacks that are euphemistically referred to as informal settlements. And in every town, there are people we call beggars who collect in traffic lights and in town squares. They are not beggars, of course, for that is not their identity. They are human beings who have been forced to sacrifice their dignity in part because of my party's successive failures. We're an organization that purports to create a better life for all. A new black middle class has grown and developed, which is a good thing. However, this middle class is leaving behind people who die before ambulances can reach them or perish in the hallways of overflowing, under-resourced hospitals. As ANC leaders publicly proclaim ownership of obscenely wealthy homesteads and other possessions and send their children to the best schools in the land, there are still many South Africans whose children continue to be exposed to the risk of dropping into pit latrines in poorly equipped public schools and dying horrendous and humiliating deaths. There are children in rural areas who miss classes when streams and rivers are in flood because there are no bridges. How does it come about that raw sewage flows into the Umgeni River and into the sea, polluting eThekwini beaches that have been a traditional holiday destination for black people from inland provinces, some of whom used to travel from as far north as Limpopo, Northwest, Mpumalanga, etc.? For what earthly reason did the Gauteng Department of Health think that frail, elderly and very vulnerable people should be sent into ill-equipped, ill-prepared and ill-funded houses under the guise of unqualified NGOs, resulting in the death of some 160 people, as happened in the Esidimeni Life scandal? Businesses are failing, downsizing or simply deciding not to invest anymore in our country, where the environment has become entirely disabling for them. As a result, thousands of jobs are being lost at a time when the unemployment rate ranges north of 32% and 60% for persons aged between 15 and 24 years. Inexplicably, you have ministers who attack the very private sector the president is inviting to be an essential part of a social compact in a program to rebuild our economy and enable higher growth.
And charter confessing to collusion, it's a very sad state. We have maintained over the period that the performance of the rand and sometimes the performance of the economy has been manipulated by private sector who has no interest in the development of this country, who continue to engineer and do machination to make sure that the government collapses. That's why they also self-feed in the narrative that there's a collapsing state, there's a collapsing economy, because that's what they wish for and their actions do that.
You do not need to dig deeply to discover that most of the country's failures are linked to corruption somewhere in the system, a tender that should not have been awarded, a job that should have gone to a better qualified, more deserving and less fictional aligned person. This is happening on the watch of the ANC government. An ESCOM brought to its knees by high-level corruption and sabotage has literally rendered the nation powerless and all too often left it in the dark. Transnet's mismanagement has derailed its haulage system. In consequence, road transporters who have stepped into the breach sometimes have to wait in 40-kilometer-long queues while belching noxious gases into the atmosphere, because ports are congested. The resulting demurrage charges are inevitably ultimately borne by the consumer. and the worst may yet happen. Ships simply avoiding our ports and discharging their cargo in better-run ports elsewhere. The litany of economic and social woes, crime, unemployment, destitution associated with my beloved African National Congress is not only embarrassing but also defies enumeration. It is a matter of public record that for over a decade I've added my voice to many others that have consistently decried and disapproved of corruption and its harmful byproducts of nepotism and incompetence. The response of the leadership of this constructive censure has at best been a shoulder shrug and a promise to do something about it. At worst, those who seek change by raising voices endure less or are met with downright hospitality. Despite the failures of the ANC and the manifold malfeasances referred to above, I'm heartened that the South African spirit is alive and well. It is evident in the entrepreneurs found in every township and community who manage to survive despite the barriers. You see it when you look at organizations like Gift of the Givers, which has become a global force for good. It is demonstrated in the creative talent of a new generation that is earning accolades on stages in every genre, from opera to photography and comedy. And who cannot notice the wonder of Amapiano, whose pioneers are generating joy and resources with their uniquely South African outlook? Alas, despite these and other glimmering flashes of positivity, the ANC is on the verge of losing power. This is not because Zuluin Investments, a small company from Newcastle, got a writ of attachment against the ANC for 150 million rands and the High Court Sheriff has been to Lutula House to attach immovable property. It is because, as its own pollsters have warned, the ANC is currently falling significantly short of securing outright victory during next year's elections. This dramatic decline in the organization's popularity is attributable to widely held perceptions that its members and deployees are corrupt, that the organization has a high tolerance threshold for venality, and that the deployment of unsuitable people accounts for the government's deplorable levels of service to the public. To address these social perceptions, the ANC Veterans League, in a resolution passed at its conference and in decisions subsequently taken at the League's successive National Executive Committee meetings, urged the leadership of the organization to ensure that members who have been accused of criminality or recommended for referral to criminal justice institutions by commissions set up to investigate corruption should not be allowed to continue in office. The Veterans League specifically recommended that such individuals be considered ineligible for nomination to represent the ANC in the 2024 national and provincial elections. Unfortunately, the ANC NEC has shown no agency to deal with this matter. Consequently, I have come to the realization that my time and energies will be better spent elsewhere. Even as I painfully sever ties with my once glorious organization, I shall continue to keep a vigil over any and all matters pertaining to governance in the country. It is not easy to leave an organization that continues to be home to some of the most dedicated individuals I've had the good fortune, honor and privilege to call comrades, but it is time to go. This is how the Secretary General of the ANC chose to respond to the resignation of Ntate Mavuso Msimang.
Overnight, but Roger Chatin. Yeah, well, you're not. They are forming a political party on a mission of bribing ANC veterans. Mavuso Msimang, kuyathethwa ngamagama abantu befimu robe asazi noba inyani. But Msimang siyayazi ukuthi uhambile. Now, these people kuthiwa they have been given a lot of money because this thing yabo abayiqalayo, for it to have credence, it must have people with strong credentials. So that is what they do.
And this is how Ntate Msimang responded to Fikile Mbalula's remarks.
Fikile Mbalula, the Secretary General of the African National Congress, addressing an ANC rally somewhere, I think it was yesterday. In this clip, he accuses me of having accepted a bribe in order to join the party of Mr. Roger Jardine. Well, first of all, I have not joined any party. And secondly, it's insulting to suggest that I accepted a bribe. You know, it's really a pity that the African National Congress has a person like Mbalula as its Secretary General. It's an embarrassment. You know, for an organization that once boasted the likes of Sol Blackie, Oliver Tambo, Duma Nokwe, and a few others, to end up with a Mbalula is actually a commentary on the state of the organization. I do want to plead with Mbalula. No, in fact, I demand that he should retract these accusations against me. They are libelous. He should do so soon. Actually, I think, in fact, it is a friendly request, but it has to happen and happen soon.
It is quite disturbing that the Secretary General of the governing party will choose to ignore all the important points raised by Mr. Mavuso and rather choose to focus on petty politics to a point of making false claims about one of his own. A good leader will have chosen to engage Mr. Msimang on the issues that he raised in his resignation letter and see how they could salvage the situation instead of running to the media to spread false information to make Msimang look bad. But what can you expect from the leadership of the ANC? Always arrogant, complacent, and always willing to throw one of their own under the bus for political gain.